government insists that we Singaporeans exist only to make money. Human rights are not in our makeup. Even martial values are less alien than democratic ones. This really seemed the case, because for years, when I talked about protests, people looked at me as if I was a stark, raving lunatic. I'm sure many still do. Here is this island paradise that works, and here is this green-eyed monster wanting to tear everything down. And when I embarked on a cause of civil disobedience, even some of my more progressive associates thought I had really lost it, that I had gone too far. And so when I stood up at Raffles Place during lunch, almost 10 years ago, on 28 December 1999, and made a speech without a permit, I was roundly and almost universally castigated for being a radical who could not see that Singapore was different, and Singaporeans were not interested in their civil and political rights. Mr. Lee Kuan Yew said that if we allow such activity on the streets, there'll be, quote, pandemonium. We are not that kind of society, unquote. Several months later, he was confronted in Davos, Switzerland, when he attended the World Economic Forum by William Safire, a New York Times journalist and former speechwriter for Richard Nixon. Safire asked him point blank whether he would consider allowing free speech in Singapore. The minister mentor said he would consider it. Now, whether he was caught by surprise and didn't want to look bad, and so said that he would consider it, no one knows. But shortly thereafter, Speaker's Corner at Hong Lim Park was established. That gave me the first glimpse of how civil disobedience could work. I knew that with the right strategy, we could win, or at least extract concessions from the government. I didn't stop there, because restricting free speech to a grass patch outside of the police station was a political joke. And so we pressed on, now focusing also on freedom of assembly, that is, the right to stage protest, peaceful protests. Again, I was chastised and called all sorts of names, from being a show-off pulling on publicity stunts, to playing up to the West, to being a traitor, undermining the interests of Singapore. But I knew deep down in my heart I was right and they were wrong. And all through this, a few people remained steadfast with me. Gandhi Abdullah was one of them. And together we persisted and we fought on. Slowly, our numbers began to grow. And now, years later, and after several arrests and prison terms, the government has finally acknowledged the moral imperative of freedom to speech and assembly. Last week, the Straits Times reported, and this is what they reported about Ho Chok Tong. Asked by an undergraduate if the move towards political openness was done out of necessity, Mr. Goh replied, necessity in a way, because to be relevant as the government, you must know the aspirations of the people. That was what he said. And so what are these aspirations? Well, he answered the question in his next sentence, which is a stunning admission of the reality. He said, we can control you, oppress you, but we lose you. You move elsewhere, so we have to move not being interested in human rights. What was political and social taboo only a couple of years ago is suddenly now accepted by the government as a necessity. This admission is much more significant than the government's decision to allow protests at Hong Kong Park. Because for the first time, the PAP has conceded the legitimacy of public demonstrations. But it wasn't put on a platter for us. We had to fight for it. We had to sacrifice for it. I tell you this not to claim credit or to gloat, for there is nothing to gloat about because nothing has been achieved yet. I tell you this because I want you to see that the PAP is not this immovable wall that we keep talking about, and we are most certainly not the atheist. I want to banish the unfortunate and long-held perception that it is no use going against the PAP because we just cannot win. The truth of the matter is that the government can be made to back down. You have seen it with your own eyes, that civil disobedience, if carried out in an astute and disciplined manner, works. Civil disobedience is not just about breaking laws willy-nilly, challenging the authorities as and when we feel like it. There are moral considerations, and the responsibility is a heavy one to bear. There is not a moment to tarry. Now is the time to press home our advantage. Now is the time to ensure that we consolidate on our gains and push further into our opponent's territory. We must let the PAP know unequivocally that it will either open up the political process or it, as a government, will become irrelevant. We must seize the day. Carpe diem. Make the change that we are all capable of, that we all have a duty to carry out, that we all owe to ourselves and our children to effect. Carpe diem. Seize the day. It has been said that it is far better to light a candle than to curse the darkness. Light that candle in your heart, my friends, and together we can make the flame of democracy burn brighter and ever more iridescent. Thank you once again for honoring us with your presence this evening, and on behalf of my fellow Singapore Democrats, I wish you all very best. I leave you with this thought. You may never know what results come of your action, but if you do nothing, there will be no result. Thank you. Enjoy.